Today we're going to be taking a look at a painter and his drawings and color studies that he used for larger paintings. And his name is Léon Augustin Lhermitte. He was a French painter, 1844 to 1925. So he lived and worked basically at the same time as the Impressionists did, but took a different route. His work is more value and drawing oriented, not the emphasis of color like the Impressionist was. Although, when we take a look at some of his pastels, you'll see they're very impressionistic. So, let's take a look at his work here. And I don't know the size of a lot of these, but you can see in here there's a lot of the brownish, whether it's raw umber, burnt sienna tone on the canvas showing through with just a little bit of color to accent the values. So, more value oriented. But very nicely drawn. His drawing was really good, as you'll find out here in a minute. There was one painting I've seen in person at the Metropolitan Museum in New York. And this painting, it's a life-size painting and figures actually a little bigger than life-size. As you can see, I did a close-up here. You can see a little bit more of the way he approaches. Very limited color. Kind of basic color, basic red skirt, blue clothes there, just green leaf. Not a lot of variation of color. The darks are very thin. You can see a lot of canvas through the real thin, transparent darks, and then the buildup of the lights. See the real thick lights in here and on the leaves in the basket. It's really an interesting painting to look at and see what he's thinking of brushstroke-wise in his paintings. So we got some more here. He also did a lot of pastels, and my guess is a lot of these pastels are studies for bigger oil paintings. Don't know that for sure, but a lot of them I think were just finished pastels, just pastel for painting's sake. But again, more value oriented here, although there's a lot more color temperature involved, but really paying attention to the shapes and the values of those shapes, and then how he arranges them. Paper here is using as more of a middle value, kind of a warm gray, and he seemed to be using that in all of them. This is another pastel here. You can see the warm, kind of brownish or warm gray paper showing through, either using that or a real cool gray. The warm gray tends to warm up the painting a little bit. And again, value is very limited, at least when you think about pastel. Pastel usually is a lot more color variation just because you have so many sticks of color to choose from with pastel. And you can mix them right on the paper, just one color next to another, very much like the Impressionist painted, but not so much here. Still more value oriented, but he could draw really well. He went to the fine art school in Paris, I think that was the name of it, Paris Fine Art School, and really focused on drawing. And even as a little kid, attended a math and drawing school, kind of an odd combination for a school, but it really helped him. His drawing is really nice. So another pastel. Now this is what I mean by him being more impressionistic here. You can see his subject matter is all pretty much the same. People working in the fields. They called him the painter of the harvesters because he did just tons of paintings, drawings, and pastels of people working out in the fields. But a lot more color, a lot more atmosphere here. And here the color is a bigger part of the painting as well as the drawing. But now it's more bigger shapes of color that kind of impact the painting more than just the bigger shapes of value. Got a lot here, so I'm going to kind of go through them. Here's charcoal drawing, a lot of charcoal drawings. And I imagine some of these are just drawings for drawing's sake, but also a lot are studies for paintings. And it looks to me like he just really enjoyed the process of painting. Finding his subject, doing drawings, color studies, and working things up for a larger painting. Here's another pastel. Not quite so impressionistic, a little more value-oriented. Not a lot of color variation, blues and greens and yellows and browns. So not geared more towards color temperature like Impressionists were. Here's more of one of his paintings. Don't know how big this is. Again, more value oriented. The nice big simple shapes and nice big simple value of the pale yellow field and the dark figures against it and the dark trees against the lighter sky. Very nice. Really strong build up in the lights as well, and keeping the darks a little bit thinner. Another pastel, again, a bit more impressionistic than the oil paintings. A lot of variation of color in the grass. Even though it's green grass, there's yellow and orange, yellow, green, green. So a lot more variation. But still keeping things very simple. The darks don't have as much color in them. It reserves all the color variation for the lights. Another strong pastel here. A lot of color variation now, although not a big buildup of color. A lot of the paper showing through in these areas. You can see, it's 4 or 5 colors and just the blue hill in the background to show the distance. So just laying one color next to the other. While the color has a lot more variation, a lot more stronger color, it's still more value oriented, more drawing oriented, but using the color nicely to accent the big shapes. Here's one of the oil paintings. It wasn't a great file. It's a small file, so it can't blow it up very big. But very limited palette now, going back to looking at value and composition to carry the painting more than color. Nice composition starting here on the figures and leading in, and everything points you back to the top of the hill there. It's an interesting drawing here. Probably just more of a finished drawing, just for drawing's sake. Don't know that. But it's a beautiful drawing. It has a lot in it, a lot of detail, but the light is still what draws you. That's more the focal point, is the light from the windows, how it hits all the stuff in the room and lights up the figures. A lot of detail, but the detail doesn't kill it. I mean, he could simplify the detail a lot more and it would still be just as impressive. A lot of times when we focus too much on the detail, it kind of kills the overall composition in the big shapes and values, but that doesn't. Here's a charcoal drawing where he's added a little bit of pastel. Not much at all. Again, it's just kind of accented or highlighted color, and it's the values that are making things work. Very small file, so it doesn't blow up very well. We can't really see what's... But I like the way he's using just a little bit of subtle value changes of blue to accent the black charcoal, black and gray charcoal. So another pastel, getting a lot of nice color variation in the greens. The darks, really simple, black and brown pretty much. Has all the color change in the lights. Another very strong pastel here. Color's a lot brighter, a lot more impactful in the painting as opposed to the more value-oriented paintings. A lot of strong yellow greens. So the color plays a lot more bigger part here. The sky gets kind of blown out in the photograph. We don't see the color as much, but it's a very warm sky, very yellow-oriented, which really contrasts the cooler blues and greens in the shadow. Also using the pastel very directly. There's no smearing or blending, trying to get rid of the pastel strokes. He's letting them show and be a big part of the painting. There's always that urge when you do a pastel to smear it and blend it, and that just kills the color, and it kills the idea of the strokes of the pastel, which I think are a big part of pastel painting. This is an interesting painting. I don't know if it's a start for a painting that he just didn't finish. If it is, it gives us a good insight into how he starts. He gets color everywhere. The lights are very thin, darks are even thinner, and a lot of the toned canvas is showing through. You can zoom in a little bit. And a lot of this kind of lighter brown is just toned canvas. And it really helps to look and see how he's applying the paint. This is just the canvas showing through over here, and just strokes of color. Now he is thinking simple values. So he has a value in mind when he's applying all that green grass, and then a value in mind when he's applying the value in color for the stones. But there's a lot of detail. But he has certain values in mind for certain planes, which makes the painting hold together. So a lot of thin scrubbing of color in this stage, more of the block in or just scrubbing in the block in. Toned canvas showing here. So it could be either just the start of a painting that he didn't finish or just a study for a larger painting. But it's always interesting to find paintings like that of artists where they weren't finished. They were stuck in a stage in the beginning of the painting, and really gives us some insight into how they were thinking when they were painting. Another file that's not very big, but just a real nice charcoal drawing of a child there. It makes me want to go back to the charcoal drawing days of life drawing. So another charcoal drawing, a finished drawing. Still could have been a study for a larger painting. He did a lot of large paintings of crowded village scenes like this. This could be a preparation for one of those. But you can see how the values hold together. The darkest darks, have kind of a flow to it. Starting in here, these darks on the shirts, shadows on the baskets, they all kind of flow around in there. It all kind of holds together, kind of finding that shadow pattern that holds up or sets up the composition really nicely. Another charcoal drawing. Again, a lot of detail, but it holds together because there's a simplicity of value. While he has a lot of little darks and lights, there's still a simple values that he's using. 4 to 5 values to make up this more complicated scene. Because you can do a detailed drawing or painting and it just can destroy the painting. Whereas you can have a detailed drawing or painting where you simplify the values and the paintings don't, or the details don't destroy the painting. So this is the drawing, the charcoal drawing for the painting we just briefly saw. But again, charcoal, really nice drawing. And charcoal is a good way to work out ideas as far as your values go, because it's easier to manipulate and move around. And I don't know if these were the same size as the finished painting. Here's the finished painting. But even the painting is more value oriented. The colors are muted, very harmonious, simple, few colors, which allows the values to stand out more. So I really like that drawing. Really nice little drawing here, again, for probably a painting at some point. Because these guys didn't use photography, and if they did, it was later in their life, because it really wasn't in use much during his lifetime. But they certainly could have used it. They got to use some photographs later in his career. But these would be his photographs. This is what he uses, the drawings, pastel studies, to do larger oil paintings. Now this is an interesting group of pastels and drawings of women out in the field. So nice pastel, even more so of just a drawing than painting. A little bit of color, 2 or 3 values of that kind of raw sienna almost. With a touch of blue in there. And the darker raw umber for maybe the shadows. So very limited, a little bit of pink on the hat. Just beautiful drawing. Nice proportions, nice simplicity in the face. Same thing with this pastel. Let's call it a study. It might have been a finished painting, no idea, but he did have some paintings of women like this sitting in the field. But the values are very simple, and color is too. There's not a lot of color variation. But you can learn a lot from looking at this, how he simplifies the values, the shapes on the figure, and using limited color to really suggest mood and time of day. And here's more of the finished painting. I don't know that it is. This could be another study. Again, a lot of thin paint in the darker areas, some of the canvas showing through, and build up of the thicker paint in the lights in on here. And this is oil paint. It's not a pastel. Another combination of drawing with a little bit of pastel. Woman sitting at the window, a little bit of warmth in the background, and kind of reddish orange on her clothing, and then just the charcoal for the interior. So a touch of temperature to the drawing to give him an idea of how he wants to work out the sense of light. Some nice drawings here. So another way of doing studies is to use toned paper. The paper here is more of a middle value, kind of bluish gray or just gray, and using pencil, in this case is graphite, for the shadow, and then a white pencil, chalk, or pastel for the highlights. So 3 values to show the form, and it's a good way to quickly get something down and work out the shapes and values before doing the painting. Now here's a big painting. Let's go to, found a bunch of drawings for this painting. Again, could be a finished painting in itself. Finding a model, and I found this figure in a lot of paintings and drawings, so I must have used him a lot, but have him as a model for this larger painting here. And again, working this out with 3 basic values. You got your 2 values in the darks, you got the half tone, and then you got the light of the paper. Now there's some other values in there, but those are the 3 main big values that you're starting with. And then to create more form, you might add another value or 2. But simplifying the values is what makes it work. And here's the finished painting. Get a nice flow here of the figures. Kind of winds the eye around. Not a lot of color, more value oriented. The color is more basic and just kind of accents the big shapes of value here. So another charcoal drawing. I found a lot of these, just landscape drawings. Easily use this. Again, this would be his photography, what he would use to paint from. We're used to using so much photography today. The idea of maybe going out and learning to draw so that you can rely on your drawings to paint from, I think would be really, really helpful. It's a good exercise to try and do. Just keep the camera at home, although the iPhones are our camera, so don't pull out your iPhone. Do a series of thumbnail drawings, some finished drawings to get a sense of a little bit of detail, and maybe do a color study and take that home and try and do some smaller finished paintings from it. Here's another tone drawing on tone paper. The charcoal is the shadow, and the white is the light, and then the tone paper is the halftone. Of course, he's got 2 values in the shadow, but simplified idea. And again, this would be used to work out the details of a painting. He's an interesting painter to look at. There's a lot of his work online. It's not a lot of it that's real big to really look at, but some of them are. And it's a lot to learn from his studies and drawings.